I've heard how Disney loves to try and silence things that they don't want anyone to know about, and after reading this synopsis, I can't say I blame them entirely for their decision. I only hope this video stays up. Mickey's Best Friend is a controversial 10-minute cartoon that aired in 1929 that has been banned and isn't allowed to be shown again due to its history of kids requiring constant attention after viewing its content. It isn't even available to anyone who wants to complete their collection of classic Mickey cartoons. It was originally intended to be a Halloween special which revolved around Mickey and Eustace, an anthropomorphic dog character. Walt, at the time, thought kids were getting dumbed down by other shows, and that they were mature enough to handle what he wanted to show them. Mickey is driving to his workplace in his car. Along the way, it breaks down due to an engine problem, and he gets out to check it. When Mickey finds out it's beyond repair, he goes into depression until Eustace arrives and helps out by fixing the problem. Mickey is relieved and introduces himself. After getting Eustace's name, Mickey invites him to go with him somewhere. Eustace asks if Mickey is supposed to be somewhere, but Mickey lies to him and decides to skip work. The two arrive in a cafe, where the owner spots Mickey and gives him a stern look. He walks up rudely and asks Mickey what he wants. After ordering, the sheriff enters and confronts Mickey, demanding that he finally pays off his late rent. Mickey, on the verge of breakdown, is pitied by Eustace, who decides to pay Mickey's entire debt. The sheriff laughs and warns Eustace, telling him that Mickey will only cause him trouble before leaving the scene. Mickey, relieved that he's off the hook, hugs Eustace in joy. Mickey leaves the cafe with Eustace and begins to introduce his new friend to the local residents, through a bunch of different scenes. They don't care, and walk off. The last resident they speak to begins to chuckle for a bit, and warns Eustace that he should be careful around that mouse. Eustace tries to get an explanation on why the person holds a grudge, but the resident is nowhere to be seen after this warning. Eustace asks Mickey why he's been smiling after the reception he got. Mickey admits to Eustace that he hasn't had any friends before, and that Eustace is his first pal. Eustace feels bad and seems to be hiding something with a guilty expression. Mickey and Eustace, in a bunch of quick scenes, stop by a theatre, play a game, and go atop a mountain viewing the scenery. Afterwards, Mickey shows Eustace his home in hopes that he'll live with him. It's here where Eustace feels bad for the mouse, but finally admits that he has to leave. Mickey is in shock and assumes that it's a betrayal, like all other of his relationships. Eustace tells Mickey that he isn't pleased by the town, and especially the residents, and is going to search elsewhere. He apologizes to Mickey and gives a few encouraging words before heading out the door. Mickey rushes to grab Eustace by the leg and pleads him to stay, but Eustace shakes his head. Mickey decides that he can't lose his only friend, and knocks him out with a rock that he found on the ground. The next scene shows Mickey walking down the stairs to his basement. He turns on the light where Eustace is tied to an operating table. Eustace is still unconscious. Mickey begins to sob and act apologetic. He talks to Eustace through his state, telling him that it has to be this way. He constantly shouts out that he can't be alone anymore, and finally gets a knife from under the operating table and begins to work on him from off screen. After Eustace finally awakens, it is revealed that he's no longer anthropomorphic, but a real dog. He begins to freak out and can only bark. During the freakout, it switches to first person, and we see Mickey entering the room. Eustace no longer seems scared. The moment he sets his sights on Mickey, he feels like he needs Mickey, and finally pounces and licks him. Mickey tells Eustace that no one will ever know about this, and how it'll be their eternal secret. He tells Eustace that he'll be known as Pluto until they part. The scene switches to Mickey's home and zooms out. The sheriff's laughter is heard along with the resident who had warned Eustace about Mickey in the first place. Walt Disney was inspired to make a Halloween-themed episode of The Beloved Mouse. Characters were created and made up on the spot that would later become official characters. The owner of the cafe would later become Daisy Duck, and the resident attempting to warn Eustace would later become Goofy, who supposedly looked a lot like Eustace's design. Pluto would also become a recurring character, but any connection to Eustace isn't mentioned. The animators felt discussed it during the final portion of the cartoon and demanded that the operation scene would get censored. Walt had no choice but to give in to their demands. Production of the cartoon was delayed due to many of the workers and animators feeling unease for Eustace after reading the script. Production was very slow due to the employees not wanting to really finish this cartoon. There was also an undisclosed budget, which could be due to the animators demanding a higher pay for making something so out of their comfort zone, especially for a kids' cartoon. It took a few months to finish production. A lot of outrage and controversy stirred after the cartoon finally aired. It was the opposite of what Walt wanted. People claimed that their children couldn't sleep at night and would get nightmares involving getting operated on by Mickey. It would even cause children who were very young to require constant attention because they didn't want to be alone, especially at night. Due to this, parents wanted to press charges over the content. Walt finally decided to destroy any copy of the cartoon he could come across in an attempt to hide his failures. Few have pointed out how Eustace looks similar to Goofy. Some have said that Eustace's features would later on be given to a more clumsy Goofy. After multiple viewings, some have talked about the Anthro characters being considered normal, perfect beings, while the Ferals are considered mentally disabled and are kept as pets that are most likely restrained due to how dangerous they can be. While there are no connections to Eustace in future cartoons, Mickey gets extremely worried when Pluto runs off or gets lost, and will even risk his life in order to save his best friend. This is the only connection from Mickey's best friend that is shown in any other cartoons. There used to be a particular site that showed screenshots from the episode Mickey's Best Friend, but unfortunately it is no longer accessible. The site can no longer be found and seems to have disappeared. Most of the writers of the episode are now deceased, most likely due to old age. Back when they were around, however, they didn't want any mention of the cartoon. Some have said it was due to guilt.